Ladies and gentlemen, may I present Vito LaBella.
Steve, that was really great. Thank you very much. You see that? Nobody can fake sympathy the way I can. It's an occupational hazard. I've been a cop for 30 years, and I've been an actor for 40. The only reason I became a cop is because I couldn't get a job as an actor. It worked out. I looked at it like any other role. I had a costume, I had props, and I played a part. It's the feeling that you get when you're looking at your life from the outside, like a movie shot. It's called depersonalization or compartmentalization, and it's a coping mechanism. Of course, if it's too severe, it's also called being a sociopath. So there's a balance that you have to kind of strike. And I was trying to strike the right balance. I mean, I was going about doing my job, doing what I had to do, and then going home and waiting for the next show. I mean, the next tour. I mean, I would use dialogue from television shows. Ma'am, I am so sorry. I am so sorry that, your daughter was in a bad accident, and, we got there as fast as we can. The cops and I, we started working on her. We did what we could, and then EMS came, and they took over, and they worked really hard, and the firefighters were there, and we blocked the street, and we got her to the hospital, and then the doctors took over, and the doctors did their job, and they worked so hard, but I am so sorry. Her injuries were just too severe, and there was nothing anybody could do, and she died. And I have a tear, and they're crying, and I'm thinking to myself, wow, this scene is going really well. I hope it's good for them, because it's really good for me. And on 9/11, now my life, the movie, was now my life, the disaster film, and I was a bit player in this huge, perfectly scripted film. We were in Cape Cod, my wife and I. It was just the two of us celebrating our 10th wedding anniversary that week. And we had been to the beach that morning, and we walked on the beach. It was a beautiful, gorgeous day. And we went to the bakery, and we brought back blueberry muffins, and we were sitting, watching Today's Show, drinking coffee and reading the paper, and this was the life. And just like a disaster film, they cut into the news. The news cut in. There was something happening in downtown Manhattan. And it got worse and worse. And when the second plane hit, Matt Lauer said, well, I think we have to consider that this might be an intentional act. And I'm screaming at the TV, Matt, do you think? Right then I got up, I shaved, I showered, and I got out just as the South Tower collapsed. And right there from everything forward was boom, boom, boom. Every single scene was perfect. My wife and I packed the car. We said goodbye to our in-laws, my in-laws, her mom and dad. We gave them the dogs to take care of because God knows what we were going to find when we got home. And we shot down I-95. And there was nobody on I-95. That never happens. We traveled 100 miles an hour. We pulled into a rest stop, a McDonald's, and the whole place was empty except for 3 people in the back hovered around a black and white TV with rabbit ears trying to get some news. And the closer we got to the city, the more the tension grew, and I don't think we even spoke. We just listened to the news as it got more and more severe. Finally, we reached the checkpoint, and I showed my ID, and the cop's face was like, be careful, boss. Good luck, boss. And I felt like, wow, this is how my father must have felt during World War II. We got home, I dropped my wife off, kissed her goodbye, and I headed into work. Work was a beehive of activity. We had to figure out who was coming in, where to put them, what post to field, try to get back some kind of normalcy. And also, we had 2 officers who were missing, Ramon Suarez and Mark Ellis. We checked all the hospitals, they weren't there, checked around, waiting for them to show up, and they never did. So, oh, by the way, Lieutenant, tonight, get down there, see if you could look for them. Okay. So I didn't get there until probably 10 or 11 o'clock on the night of the 11th. And just like people have said, it was a pile. It was a pile 7, 8 stories high, stretching 4 blocks long and 3 blocks wide. And I knew that he and his partner were coming out of the North Tower, but there was no way anybody can get near the North Tower. There was one brigade over on the south end of the South Tower. And I looked at the guy I was with, and I said, what's the sense of looking over there? He's not over there, he's over here. We couldn't get to him. There was nothing we could do. So we headed back, and over the next few months, we continued to play our parts and do what we had to do, and finally the pile had become a pit. And at the bottom of the pit, on December 19th, they found Ramon Suarez. And I got a call at work, and I was informed of this, and so we grabbed 6 guys, and we came down to the site, and now the movie in my head was a real movie, because there were lights, and there were cameras, and there was this ritualistic, choreographed ceremony that we performed. Mark was draped in a flag in his body bag, and he was on the Stokes basket. And myself and 6 other cops carried him up this long ramp to a waiting ambulance. And when we started walking up the ramp, everybody stopped what they were doing. And they put their hand over their heart, or they saluted, until we got him into the ambulance. Somebody said a prayer, and then we drove him past our command to Bellevue Morgue. And his funeral was 3 days later, and that was another very ritualistic, very ceremonial type thing. So everyone did their part. And after that, my wife and I kind of re-examined. We'd been married 10 years, together 12. So we're thinking about, well, what's the next thing for us? And so then 2 years later, in 2003, Evan was born, and then Dylan in 2005, and then my daughter Morgan in 2008. So usually that's the end of my story, right? But like every good disaster film, there's an epilogue, like this extra scene after the credits. And even though I tell my kids, if it wasn't for 9/11, none of you would be here. What happened to me in 2014 was the thing that connects everything together. Because at the age of 52 years old, I decided to take up boating. And I have my 3 kids and the neighbors' kids across the way. So we have 5 kids by myself in this boat, and we're going to go out to a beach and anchor up and wade to the beach, and we're going to have a great day. Except, I don't know what the heck I'm doing, so I anchor too far from the beach. I say, Evan, jump in the beach. Jump in the water, swim to the beach. You're 10, you could do it. So he jumps in, and the current is pulling him parallel to the beach, behind the boat. And he's trying to swim against the current. Now, all in my head, I'm trying, okay, this is not a big deal, but it kept on getting worse and worse and worse. So I had to try to manage the situation, but the difference is I had to tamp down the panic as I handled the situation. I had to stop the nausea in my stomach. I had to be cognizant of my hand shaking and my sweating, because this wasn't just, anybody, this was my son. And I saw my son being pulled the current. He looked at me with such fear in his eyes. And all I could do was yell, Evan, don't panic, swim perpendicular, swim toward the beach, swim toward the beach. I couldn't jump in. Obviously, I'm not in lifeguard shape. I couldn't go for the anchor because I couldn't take my eyes off of him. I had to know which way he was headed. So all I could do as he was pulled away from me was just scream. And, well, he made it to the beach because he's right here today. But that day, I learned the difference between sympathy and empathy. And when I deal with victims now, I feel what's going on. When I hear stories from my friends about a search for their brothers on 9/11, I imagine my daughter Morgan looking for her brothers. When I hear a story from my friend about trying to do their job while their son is missing, all I can see is my son floating away from me when I'm trying to manage a situation. I feel everything much more acutely. And honestly, well, it really sucks. Thank you.